Coming to you from the Spit Studios in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, this is the Spit Sports Show. I really didn't want to make this video. Detroit Lions content, it doesn't exactly get the viewership that it should, in my opinion, considering the greatness of the team and how awesome of a story that they are. But it's my show. I can talk about whatever the hell I want. This is why I have a sports podcast. So I'm going to talk about the Detroit Lions because I keep hearing these old, same, tired narratives from people in the national media about how the coordinator losses and the devastating playoff losses, like all of it's going to equate to somehow this team missing the playoffs when they were the 1 seed last year and won 15 games and lost one player. But I'm going to get into all of that in a couple of minutes, but that's the motivation behind this video. The other motivation behind this video is the fact that the Lions absolutely crushed the Dolphins in their joint practices. The first day was, I guess, a bit more one-sided than the second day, where the Dolphins were able to show a bit of fight. Good for them, I guess. But I want to talk about the progression of this Detroit Lions core because the rise of this franchise has been basically Nvidia stock. It's just been a constant rise and uptick, and how much better can they get? And somehow they get better every single year. I remember last year coming off of that NFC championship game loss, people had the exact same opinion. How are they going to be able to recover from such a devastating loss where they were so close, blah, blah, blah. So I just want to run you guys through the linear progression of this team and how I think that linear progression is going to apply to this season. So they start off first season, they have a very bad roster. They're still trying to get out of the grave that Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn dug for this team with their new Patriot way malarkey. So they start 3-13-1. And besides that first win ever against the Vikings where St. Brown had that touchdown, it was really a year to forget. But that's kind of how you rebuild a team. You start at the bottom, you get draft picks, you get good players, and you build your way up from there. They came out the next year, though, and they laid an egg. They started off 1-6, but the momentum, and they kept believing in their coach, and they kept believing in the pieces that they were starting to build in that room. Aiden Hutchinson was a rookie this year, and they win 8 of their last 10 games, including the biggest win for the Detroit Lions at that point in like 10 years when they beat the Packers. So the Packers didn't go into the playoffs. Detroit didn't even have a chance of going into the playoffs that night because Seattle had won earlier and basically had made the game irrelevant for Detroit. They didn't care. They sent Aaron Rodgers home with a Kirby Joseph pick, and he never played another down for the Green Bay Packers, which I got to be honest, still to this day puts a pretty big smile on my face, that win. And they come out the next season with ultra momentum from that game. But the question going into that next season was, will they be able to take that next step? Yes, they're a nice story. They have some talented players, but will they be a real contender? And the answer is absolutely yes. They beat the Super Bowl champs in week 1. By the way, side note, this is the reason why famous media personality Nick Wright hates the Detroit Lions so much, because he had a tattoo put on his wrist that said never a doubt, because he thought they were going to go 17-0 that year, and the Lions beat them in week 1 to just make it the worst prediction in the history of sports. So that's why he hates the Lions. That was a quick sidebar. Back to the Lions. They beat the Super Bowl champs in week 1. They have a fantastic season throughout. Really, the only bad loss the entire season was to the Ravens, where they got mollywopped, but they won 12 games, beat the Rams and Jared Goff's return game there and Brad Holmes' return game. They beat them in the playoffs. They beat a tough Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. Goff plays awesome in both games, really putting to rest those playoff narratives that were surrounding him for whatever reason, even though he never really had a history of playing bad. in the playoffs. People just don't like Jared Goff for whatever reason. That's a story for another day. They get to the NFC Championship game where the unthinkable happens. I don't want to relive it in my head, but it was very, very bad. I have never rewatched the highlights from that game. I can barely remember that game, to be honest, because I want to forget it. But the next year, they get even better. They win 15 games with a CFL defense for half of the season. They have 15 defensive players on injury reserve at one point, and I think they should have won the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, we'll never know what would happen if they were 100% healthy. But I don't think even the most prominent Eagles fan, Chiefs fan, whatever, could argue that when the Lions were healthy last year, they had easily the best roster in the entire NFL. They were number one in DVOA, number one in point differential, number one in pretty much every advanced statistic that grades teams. They were number one. So they win 15 games, and thanks to that CFL defense, they lose in the playoffs and a couple of just head-scratching play calls and one head-scratching Jared Goff interception, and their season is over. So coming into this season, again, the narrative in the national media is that the Detroit Lions will take a large step back. They lose both coordinators, including their boy genius offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson. They lose Aaron Glenn, who was obviously an awesome defensive coordinator by all accounts, including mine. They also have the second hardest schedule in the entire NFL, and by far the hardest road schedule in the NFL. So you put all those puzzle pieces together, their franchise center retired, one of the best players on the team, and it sure looks like there might be some regression on the way. But the thing is about the Lions and the way that they've developed throughout the years is I think if last season taught this team anything, it is that the regular season has no effect on a do or die playoff game. Zero. All you need to do is get yourself a chance to get into that tournament. That is all. Like, I really think that the Lions could win 10 to 12 games this year, which is obviously a lot less than the 15 they won last year, and be a better team. I think this difficult schedule that they've been given is actually going to be awesome for them, because when they get through that gauntlet of road teams and consistently playing the best teams in the NFL, they are going to be battle tested for the playoff run that they are going to go on. I'm not saying the regular season doesn't matter for the Lions this season. What I am saying is I think they're going to approach the regular season a little bit differently, a little bit Chiefs-esque. And Dan Campbell mentioned this in an interview that he did recently where he said, and I quote, "Maybe I pushed them a little too hard to get that one seed. And once we got it, we relaxed a little bit." And those are the things I think about. Now, I think he's wrong. I think the one seed was obviously incredibly valuable, and they just got unlucky with a play here or there, a Graham Glasgow missed block. We should have been up 17-3. I don't want to think about it. But it's clearly on the head coach's mind, the fact that the regular season having this aura of importance for the team is no longer their main goal. They've done the regular season stuff. They had a near flawless regular season last year, and look what it got them. I really think, again, the Lions are going to win between 10 to 12 games this year. Will that be enough to win the division? I don't know. It depends a lot on what Green Bay does, in my opinion. I think the Lions are better than Green Bay by a significant margin, but Green Bay has a bit of an easier schedule. But my big prediction is, despite the step back or the apparent step back in the regular season, I think this is the year they go on their big playoff run and win the Super Bowl. I think they win 10 to 12 games and just go insane in the playoffs because of all the points I just mentioned. They've now been battle tested for multiple years. They know the importance of the playoffs. they're going to face the hardest teams in the NFL throughout the entire year. They're going to be going on the road to play a lot of these tough teams. So no matter where they finish in the standings, I think they're going to feel a level of comfort going on the road for their playoff games. And they have a sense of who they are and who they can be, which I don't think they had before because they were still trying to figure that out. So my overall point is I think the Lions' exponential growth continues this year. Not in the regular season necessarily, but I think this is finally the year it all clicks, injuries barring, and the Lions go to the Super Bowl. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, I want to know, what do you guys think of the Lions' chances this year? Do you think that they're going to win a similar amount of games to last year or less games? What do you think their playoff end result is going to be? Let me know in the comments below. I'm small enough as to where I can respond to all comments and love doing so. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed what you heard. Please subscribe if you really enjoyed it. The Spit Sports Show just hit over 400 subscribers. And as always, I will see you all in the next. Peace out. Love you guys.